call at 824-8007 for all your title work needs.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome in to WTIM, your information station. My name is Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. Before we get going here with this great conversation, let's thank the sponsors that make it all possible. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. On the phone line with me right now is Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Illinois. How are you today, Dr. Redfield?
Doing just fine, thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. There was some big movement in Illinois politics here. The big budget address given by Governor J.B. Pritzker. Now, I read a statement before the budget was given saying that this budget would reflect what Illinois values. Let's just go generally. How did you feel about the budget address, and what did you hear?
Well, it was also a state of the state, and so we heard about how much progress we'd made since the governor took office after the budget crisis in the Rauner years, and that's entirely true. I mean, just one measure of that, at one point when we didn't have a budget at all, we were spending about $1 billion a year in penalties for unpaid bills. Just like taking it out in the middle of the rotunda and setting it on fire. Last year we had $23 million, which is not insubstantial, in interest payments, but nothing compared to the billion. So we are in much better shape. Some of that came from federal programs involving recovery money and COVID money. We're in much better shape than we used to be. But we're now looking at the end of COVID money. We're looking at, the economy's been doing well, but it's not, jumping off the charts. And so, the big increases the governor was able to announce in spending over the last two cycles just aren't there. We're going to have a tight budget, and we're looking at the possibility of, running into some deficits if we don't find some more revenue or, stop some of the spending increases. So it's, good news, bad news.
Yeah. You brought up some great topics right there, and I wanted to dive into just one of them right there. You're talking about the end of the federal recovery and that those COVID dollars. The first thing that comes to my mind when I'm thinking about some government funded or helped institutions, I think of schools. What other type of organizations out there might be affected by those funds drying up?
Well, it'll have an impact. It has an impact on the state budget. It also has an impact on local governments. And so local governments have gotten money. They've spent it to, in some cases to pay down debt or to deal with pensions. And, that one-time money, if you spend it wisely, reduces some pressure. If you take one-time money and start a new program, then when the federal funding goes away, all of a sudden, you either have to cut spending or find some more, state or local revenue. So, it is, we can argue about, how we've done with managing that, and the state's probably done pretty well, but there's no question that, there's a lot more good programs or tax relief that's being suggested by members of the legislature that, if you're going to have to, nothing's free. And so you're either going to have to reduce spending or find some more revenue. But it's a good maintenance budget, but down the road, we still, the bad old problems that got us into the deficit under the Rauner years when we didn't have a budget is, we've got a disconnect between how much we spend and how much we take in. The revenue doesn't keep up with the spending, just in terms of the baseline stuff. And so Illinois, even though we've got credit upgrades over the, a bunch of them over the last 3 years, we have a very fragile budget that, we can't take any kind of major world recession, big U.S. recession. It would hit us very hard. So it's okay for now.
Sure. You bring up those Rauner years when there was $1 billion left to be paid at the end of a given year, or when that budget was ready to be addressed. Now, $23 million in bills. It sounds a lot better than $1 billion. How normal is that for a state to have to pay bills? Is that something that happens on average, or is that kind of unheard of?
No, most states have, they have budget, rainy day funds.
Sure.
We have one now. We didn't used to have one. But, the real crisis was that we spent money. We were mandated to spend money by state law and federal law that we didn't have. And so because we did refuse to pass a budget, and, the governor was trying to get policy changes from the legislature that they wouldn't give him, things having to do with right to work and tort reform and, a bunch of things that really, were beyond just, having a balanced budget and meeting the needs. So we were one of the worst during that crisis because we didn't have any wiggle room. And, now again, we're stable, but we could easily end up, back in budget trouble because we get costs we didn't anticipate. Spent $600 million last year in this fiscal year. Coming fiscal year, maybe another $350 million dealing with the migrant crisis, which is the governor of Texas, busing all of these asylum-seeking migrants up to the city of Chicago. So, there are things you can't anticipate, and so if you're just paycheck to paycheck, as I know lots of people are, and then the car breaks down, you get a big healthcare bill, and so when you get you get spending you can't control, then you're in a tough position. And so the governor is asking for some tax increases that are going to fall on business. He's got some tax relief, taking off the 1% sales tax on food and groceries, but that money goes primarily to local governments, and so that's tax relief that doesn't really help the state budget and actually puts pressure on local governments. Now, I don't think we should be, taxing, groceries with the sales tax, but again, if somebody has to, somebody's got to make up the difference. And so that's what happens when you've got tight budget years and then bad past practices.
Yeah.
Pension pressure. No, we got great pension pressure in terms of all the mistakes we made underfunding the pensions for decades.
Yeah. The elimination of that 1% sales tax, it got a lot of people on their feet in the audience. I'm sure a lot of Illinoisans at first glance will think of that as a great initiative right there. But you're saying that there's kind of some downfalls to that. I mean, what's the proper way to go about eliminating that sales tax?
Well, if we're just holding people harmless, then you should kind of backfill the revenue loss for, primarily municipalities, and excuse me. So you could put more money in the local government distributive fund, which is a portion of the income tax that comes to counties and cities on a per capita basis. But if you take some general revenue and put it in that fund to help cities, then you've got less money to put into the school aid formula, less money to hire new caseworkers for children and family services. So, this is a zero sum kind of proposition, and that's the budgeting when you're right on the edge is always ends up with a certain sense of robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, I get it right there. We're talking right now with Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at University of Illinois. He's given us a breakdown of the state address and the governor's budget address that just happened about last week. And it's been a great breaking these down. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some education and some more about this budget and state of the state address. It's been great breaking it all down with Dr. Kent Redfield in this one. You've been listening to WTIM, your information station. This is the WTIM Morning Show. We will be right back.
Your information station, WTIM.
This is Will Perkins with Taylorville Community Credit Union. TCCU wants to remind area residents you still have time to stop, shop, and vote in our 10th annual scholarship program. 8 senior students, 2 each from Taylorville, Pana, Hillsborough, and Litchfield High Schools will win $1,000 scholarships. Voting continues through February 29th, so you still have plenty of time and plenty of stores to shop. We encourage everyone to think global, shop local, and support our community's small business owners. The complete listing of participating students and businesses is located on our website at tccu.org. Member NCUA.
More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio for their news, weather, sports, and a community connection. It's the backbone of the emergency alert system. It's critical that we keep AM radio in cars because when cell and internet services are down, this free emergency service could be your only lifeline. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
If you're 40 and over, you'll recognize these artists by their first names. Frank, Dean, Sammy, Andy, Nat, Diana, Michael. Well, here's the big news. You can now hear Central Illinois' largest music library with over 3,500 songs on air and online at 965thechill.com. Tune in on the FM dial in Christian County and on your computer or smartphone. Hear these great artists and many more 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 965thechill.com.
Hey, Central Illinois, it's Big D.
And this is Bubba. What's up?
Hey, we're here to let you know that we're here to wake you up Monday through Saturday mornings on newcountry.fm as part of a great lineup of today's new country music. And you can hear us at 104.1 in Taylorville and the surrounding area.
Keep your radio on after the show and keep listening for today's country hits and the latest in artist news with our friend Carson, who hosts Country with Carson weekdays from 9 till 2.
And New Country FM doesn't stop there. You can find today's New Country at 104.1 the rest of the day and night.
We're proud to be a part of the great lineup of programming on New Country FM at 104.1 across Central Illinois.
Hope you'll join us for music, fun, artist visits, and so much more on the Big D and Bubba Show Monday through Saturday mornings on newcountry.fm.
Big D and Bubba.
Trevor Huth here, and make sure to wake up with Big D and Bubba Monday through Saturday. They're at 104.1 on your radio dial. That is New Country 104.1.
Computer Techniques, also known as CTI, is bringing fiber internet to local homes and businesses. For lag-free internet with speeds up to 1 gig, find out more by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Cousin Bill here from Illinois Paving. Hey, Christian County and surrounding area. Let us do your paving job, whether large or small this year. Find out how we can do your paving project by clicking on the icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to WTIM, your information station. My name is Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. Before we continue with this great conversation with Dr. Kent Redfield, let's thank the sponsors that make it possible. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. And Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. Dr. Redfield is a professor emeritus of political science for the University of Illinois. We have been talking about the governor's state of the state address and the budget address that first half. We just talked about some of the downfalls of eliminating that 1% sales tax on groceries, the end of the federal recovery and COVID money. Now we're going to jump in to some of the educational topics that Governor J.B. Pritzker talked about. Dr. Redfield, I heard some good things here, but you always got to take these things with a grain of salt. Talk to me a little bit about this education.
Okay, so the governor last year initiated, a first step kind of early childhood education, trying to get more and more of children into daycare, preschool programs, and there's more money for that. And I think that's universally thought of as a, something that we need to be doing is getting people, getting children a better start. And so, we're putting money into that. We have, there's about $450 million of increase in funding for K through 12. About 350 million of that goes into the formula that puts new money to schools that are underfunded. Education is very heavily reliant on property tax. That creates great inequities between districts that have a very rich property tax base and districts have very poor property tax base. So, those are good things to do. That formula is designed to over time catch people up, but it has a hold harmless. The whole formula has a hold harmless, so nobody gets less money. And so it's going to take a long time to level up the districts that are underfunded because they have a poor property tax base. So, but those are all great things. Higher ed has more money. We put more money into MAP grants, which are more for low income grants to students that come from low income situations. Unfortunately, in higher ed, we're paid, the state's probably at about 40% of what it was pay, as a percentage of what it was paying of higher ed costs compared to 20 years ago. That translates into higher tuition. And so, we've got problems we're trying to fix, but, we've got a lot of holes that we've dug ourselves into trying to get them out. But, I think in terms of making an improvement on general funding and then creating many more opportunities for preschool kinds of educations. Those are all really positive things.
Yeah, I think I heard universal daycare, universal preschool by 2027. Does that sound like too lengthy of a goal, or could that be in the cards?
No, I think we're on track to do that, but again, we don't know. Budgeting is very difficult.
Yeah.
Nobody 2 years ago would have anticipated that we would have needed to spend $650 million dealing with, all of the costs of taking care of all the migrants that are being shipped here from, bused here from Texas. And so you never know what's down the road.
Yeah, and that's budget pressure you're talking about right there. I would assume that is something that could throw a wrench into the works of the budget under J.B. Pritzker here. Is that one of those, the migrant crisis? It's kind of one of those externalities almost?
Yeah. I mean, and then you've got the kind of pressure that you've got, people, particularly on the Democratic side, say, well, the federal child tax credits were really great, and it kind of helped children in poverty and poor, families that were struggling. And so, we need a state program. Well, that would have a huge price tag. And what often happens is you get a pilot program. We're going to spend a little bit of money on very specific group of people. And then every year you get a little bit more and a little bit more. And eventually you get yourself into having, a huge cost in the budget. And so, there are a lot of great ideas that once you put them out there, then it's, you say, well, we've already decided to do this. This is just a little bit more. Yeah. And, that's the way we get ourselves into trouble. And it's hard to turn those initiatives down.
Yeah. And Dr. Redfield, we're in our last minute. This one has been very informative today, and I thank you. Can you give us a 1 more minute synopsis of just your thoughts on the state of the state and the budget address?
I think, we're doing fine, but, we've got long-term pressures. We spend way too much paying off, pension debt that was occurred, 20, 30 years ago. So, we can't do everything. And, the Fed, we've had 5 or 6, I think, and more than that, credit upgrades. I mean, the sky is not falling, but, there's a lot of good things that we could be doing if we'd have managed our budget, much better in the past. And so you are where you are.
Yeah, I get it. Dr. Redfield, thank you so much for taking the time today and getting me and all the listeners informed.
No, good to be here.
Absolutely. That's Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science for the University of Illinois. It was a great morning show there. My name is Tim Zalabak, and you are listening to WTIM, your information station.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville, 96.1 W241 CF Taylorville, 107.5 W298 CD Shelbyville, 107.9 W300 EH Payne and Nokomis.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. A New York prosecutor is looking to muzzle former President Trump.
Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg asking a judge for a partial gag order on Donald Trump to protect prosecutors, court staff, jurors, and witnesses, arguing the former president's attacks pose a significant threat to the trial starting March 25th. Trump continually denying charges involving